So, hello good people on YouTube, Gabi here again. Some people were wondering how I managed to keep my workspace so tidy. And there is not much of a secret to it, I just tidy it up all the time. I do that after each step, but in this dialogue about this, people were asking whether I could show them my workshop, which actually is not a workshop, it's a room in my house, actually my pool room, and I'm building on my pool table. But I'll show you anyway what it looks like and what it is, and in the second part of the video I will show you all the tools that I'm using for doing that, because a couple of people have asked me about that, and so I thought I made a video about that so that you can have it all in one. Okay, so welcome to my workshop. So here you can see my so-called workshop, aka pool room, and this is my pool table, for which I made this plate that I covered with carpet so that I have a soft surface where I can put the guitars and work on. And I also covered the rest of the table to protect it with this tablecloth that is waxed, and you can take off anything very easily, either your vacuum of dust, or in case I spill something or am messy when polishing the guitars, I can very easily clean that off. Speaking of cleaning, I have a vacuum system that I built for under my table, and here you can clearly see that I've got this box, and here I've got a cyclone technology. Down here the dust is collected, and behind this we have a vacuum cleaner that runs the whole system. So I use that basically for most of my power tools, because the hose fits well with them, but there are some that I don't have an adapter for and I'm too lazy for making one, so I use those differently, but still there's not so much dust produced that you can't easily vacuum it off. When I'm dusting and producing dust, I normally wear a mask, and I've got different filters, some of which are for woodworking, some of which are for spraying them, which I do in my garage or garage, depends on if you're American or British. Okay, so here I've got all the small things that I need, pencils, rulers, whatever, my sanding blocks, and all the tiny little material that I need here, a bit of glue and all small things. Behind these drawers I keep my tools and my clamps. I know people hang them on the walls, but this room is not a workshop. It is my pool room, and I want everything to be nice, tidy and clean. So in the top drawer I have all my hand tools. In the second drawer there is miscellaneous stuff, and in the bottom two I have clamps. Okay, and here's my nice collection of lustige Taschenbücher, as they're called here. I don't know if you have them in other countries, but they've been with me since the mid-70s, and I'm still buying them each month because I'm a fan and a collector of them. So you take a look around, you can see that here is the first power tool that I am using, which is a Triton planer. I have forgotten what the name of it is and what the type is, but it's very easy to find it out, because there are not so many Triton planers that you can confuse it with something else. For the other machines, I have made a little list here that I will read from once I get there. So here we've got my planer that I use for rough thicknessing the back, the sides and the top, and I attached a small vacuum cleaner to that. I don't use my cyclone vacuum machine for that, because the planer produces a lot of dust or small particles of wood, and I would have to open the box all the time to get rid of the sawdust. So I do that with this one that I can easily remove, clean and put back on again. Other power tools that I use are two Shepach machines, one of which is the spindle sander, this one here. It's the OSM 100. Very cheap. I think it's the entry model, but it does the job very well, and particularly the suction on this machine works really, really well, which it doesn't on my Shepard bandsaw. So the suction here for the vacuum system doesn't work so well, but the machine gets the job done. This is a Bazaar one, and I know there are fancy things and big machines, but I find you don't need them for building your guitar. And when I started out building guitars, I neither had a bandsaw nor a spindle sander, but they make things a lot easier. So here's this kind of portable workbench that I use for a lot of things, particularly for putting in my mobile router table that I have here. And for that I use a Holtzmann OBF 1200, which is this machine. Again, it is not expensive, but it gets the job done. And with this I route my truss rod channels. But I'm planning on building a new one, which looks a bit fancier and maybe has a different router, a lighter one, so that I can move it more easily, because this is quite heavy. Okay, then we go on to some other tools that I've got here. Here is my Makita belt sander that I use for thicknessing, mostly for thicknessing the top and the sides before I fine-tune them. In former times I did that with a planer, but with different materials, particularly with figured wood. That's not a very satisfying progress. I'm planning on building a drum sander, but this has to be a small thing because I don't want this room to be filled and stuffed with all installations or work, because every once in a while I like to play pool here. Then I've got a set of different Bosch power tools that I will point out to you later. I'll put them on the table, the small tools that I use. You can call them power tools or hand tools, depending on, they're of course operated with electrical power, but they're very small and handy, and I'll introduce them to you in a moment. So that was basically it for the machines that I have here in my pool room, and we have a little turn again for showing you that. And for those who don't believe that it really is a pool table, ta-da, you can see it. Okay, so let's go on with the hand tools I use and the smaller tools for introducing them to you. Let's get started with the smaller tools I use. These are still electrical tools, power tools, but they're operated with a battery, and you can easily exchange them, and that goes for the whole system. I'm using the Bosch. I've got a couple of saws and this one-handed router, and of course my power drill for doing that. You can easily interchange and exchange the accumulators for them. So that is the one I'm rounding the edges off with, and I use for flushing the tops and the backs with the sides once I glued them on. This is a so-called, what is it called? It's a Bosch GKF 12 volts, as you can see, hopefully here. Then the next thing is this, it's basically a power drill I use for a couple of things, sometimes for polishing things, but mostly for just drilling holes and stuff. It's a GSR 12 volts, the same system like the previous machine. And I like them. They're lightweight, they're easy to use and reliable. Next, and this must be one of my favorite tools in the whole world, a Dremel. This one is a Dremel 3000 that I use for a lot of things, as you have seen in my videos. Actually, I ruined one. The first one lasted 3 years before it gave up the ghost for me. And I got a new one, and I will always get new Dremels because I really like Dremels. Dremels must be one of my favorite tools, but I'll say that about a couple of things. For routing the binding slots and channels and path links and whatever, I use this Makita one-handed router. It's a 3709, and it comes with this attachment that makes it possible to adjust to adjust the width and the depth of the channel that you want to route. It's relatively heavy for a thing that you hold in one hand, but it works really well and it gets the job done. So this is this one, and this was the last electric or power tool that I used. The other things I have are basically hand tools, like for instance my dictum planer. It's a number 4 that I use for planing. Who would have thought that? I've got this spokes shave, same make, Dictum, which is a manufacturer here in Germany that has a lot of tools. And if there was, I mean, when you're a kid, I don't know if you know that dream, a daydream you dream about being allowed to go through a supermarket, particularly the candy department, sweets department, and take whatever you like, fill up your trolley without having to pay for it. But now this stream is about Dictum and what they have, what kind of tools they have. So I've got these two planers, this number 4 and the spokes shave, that I use for working on the necks, and this one of course for the backs and sides and tops and bottoms of the guitars. And a tool of the same factory is this, you can read it, Dictum, is this Dozuki saw, which is a pulse saw that I use for many situations, and I really love it. It gives you the possibility to have a very precise cut, a very straight cut, which I like. Then another thing that I like a lot is this tiny little planer. I bought it at Dictums as well, but you can also get it, I think, at Amazon, which I use for radiusing the sides roughly before I send them to level. And of course, here I've got a number of chisels that I use. I've got another set by Triton, but this is the one that I use. I really like the grip on these rubber handles, so that's quite nice, I think. But I basically only use these 3. I have never used the other 3, so sure, those are those. And recently I bought this kind of chisel. I don't know what it's called in English, but it hasn't got a straight edge, but a rounded one, because if I build a guitar with an arm bevel, with an armrest, it's much easier to go inside the guitar sides with that to shape it. So that's what I bought this for, and I really like it. It's a very good thing. I think we call it a cow foot. That would be the literal translation. I don't know what the English language calls that, but maybe some people can tell me. It's Swiss made, which is a neighboring country, and I support them because they're politically neutral. Of course, that's nonsense. It's a good tool. Okay, so that was it. There is not much more. Of course, there are small tools that I've got here, sending blocks, stuff like this, protection, security. Yeah, maybe since I'm an elderly lady, I really like working with these magnifying glasses here. In the meantime, I've reached an age in which I need the 1.5 dioptrins to see what I'm doing, and I enjoy working with those rather than with my reading glasses, because they're easy to flip back and forth, and it gives me a good feeling and good control over things. And this is the mask that I'm using when I'm sending. Now it has filters on for light sending, but I have got bigger filters that filter gases and what's not if you need them for instance, spray painting your things. So this is my so-called workshop, and you have seen what I do here. Okay, maybe I'll make a video of me playing pool, so that would be something for a change.